Hey, so today I am here with my good friend Naseeka. She and I were in the military together in Hawaii. It's so good to have you here with me tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I wanted to take this time because Veterans Day is coming up
Mhm.
to talk to you about life in the military and how it's so much different than life in the civilian world, and then touch on life as an entrepreneur as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Especially for our upcoming veterans and those service members who are thinking about transitioning into civilian life. It's really important for them to understand that it's a completely different lifestyle.
Right. It is. So what are some of the things that you weren't prepared for, even financially? Because I know with us being in the military, we had the thrift savings plan, we had our SGLI, we had guaranteed twice a month, our COLA, or, like cost of living and our housing allowance on top of our base pay. What were some of the big shockers that you experienced when you were leaving the military?
Well, for me, when I left the military, I was able to understand. I think I was mentally prepared for the transition, but of course, you're never really as prepared as you think that you are, right? So when you're in the military, it's sort of like an umbrella, and I really appreciate that about the military service because our mission is to protect our country. There are certain things we shouldn't have to worry about, right? Most of us join when we're of a certain age, usually 18, 19, early 20s. And I think it's a nice transition, especially at that point in time, to be able to make your own money, to be able to live independently, but not have to really um, bear the burden of adulting. But for those of us that didn't or did not choose to make the military a career, I think it was somewhat abrupt, but even more so, I would assume for those lifers that we say that choose to do 20 plus years, I can only imagine how isolating it may feel, or even traumatic it can be to transition at that point in life. But for me, I will say it was a hard pill to swallow. But I would also say that because of my age, I only did one tour. I know you did 15 years, so it would be nice to hear your perspective on that. Um, I feel like it was very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Appropriate for me at that point in my life, being in my mid to late 20s at that point. I felt like it was really appropriate for me to be able to transition. But by that time, I'd already purchased my first house. Um, I was married because when you're in the service, it's a part of that culture to be married and not to shack up. So I feel like I was already pretty mature for my age, and I do thank the military for that. But for me, I think the hardest part was the social transition.
When you
Yeah,
say the social transition, what do you mean?
just being able to relate to people in the civilian sector. It's a
Right.
different mindset when you're in the military. You know, most of our peers, whether they were spouses or family members of the military, it's still that particular culture that we're all accustomed to. It's always kind of like mission first and then everything after.
Right.
Where when you're in the civilian sector, the culture is completely different.
Right.
Also, right. And then the military is also very male dominating. So there were certain things that I'd become accustomed to as a woman that wasn't acceptable in the civilian sector. So I had to kind of shift my mindset in a sense, and just understand, especially in the workforce, that certain things were just not appropriate anymore.
Oh, like what?
Just certain language.
Ah,
Um,
sailor language.
that's right. Language, problem solving techniques, um, just learning how to communicate in a more diplomatic way, you
Not,
know?
I am, an
Exactly.
E6 and you're an E2. You just need to listen to what I say.
Exactly. Right, right. Being a lot more emotionally sensitive, which I think has really served me. Um, Also culturally sensitive. Um, full disclosure, I'm from New York and I ended up relocating permanently to Texas. It's a completely different culture here. So just being really aware of those nuances. I feel like I just had to exert a lot more mental strength and emotional strength where, as in the military, it definitely prepared me for that, but it wasn't the same.
Right.
It wasn't the same.
And
Yeah,
the support system, it's like, where's my support system, right? Like, we
exactly.
know when we're going to a nudity station that we got built-in friends.
That's right. Yeah, we have people that are going to have our backs, whether they like us personally or not.
Right.
It's a different mindset. Again, it's all about the mindset and how we were trained. Whereas, as a civilian, it can be everyone for themselves in a sense.
Right. And then
Mhm.
when it came to money, what was that like for you? I mean, I know that you were married, so maybe
Yeah.
the shock of it all wasn't as heavy, but
Yeah.
how was it transitioning from that, guaranteed first and 15th paycheck to now I got to figure it out?
I think that was the toughest part. And I didn't touch on that before, but I think that was the toughest part. It took my ex husband and I mean, we're both former military. But it took us quite a while just to transition and to understand um, how to manage money. Honestly, it took us a long time to get our finances in order because we didn't have that much support. We didn't have the guidance, and of course, most of us don't come from that background as far as our family.
Right.
You know, it took us quite a while to. We pretty much had to start over. We did. We had to start all over in our careers. Um, but, it didn't take me very long to understand that there was opportunity for me to make a lot more money than I'd ever made before.
Mhm.
And I realized, after being in the workforce for a few years, that I was going to have to probably work harder than I'd ever worked in the military. Because even though you work really hard in the military, they're seasons, I should say. When you're on deployment, you know that it's going to be 24/7.
Right.
Um, but when you're not on deployment, then there's more flexibility. You know,
Right.
you you'll probably be home. If you live on base, especially, you don't have to deal with a commute in most cases because military housing is very close to the base in most circumstances. Usually people are off, especially if you're up in the higher ranks, and you can speak to that you're usually off by, it really depends on what your working hours are, but I would say, you know, maybe 4 to 6 hour work days in some
I
cases.
worked a little bit more than that. Give me some credit. Yeah.
But when you're on deployment, that's when, you know that you're going to be, exhausted, and you're prepared for that because you're not dealing with family life. So it's kind of like a trade-off.
Yeah.
Although you're away from family, you don't necessarily have to deal with family either.
You don't have to worry about what's for dinner. You just go to the galley,
Exactly.
whatever's there is there. You don't have to worry about
Right.
taking anybody to school, getting people
Walk
dressed.
the
You don't,
dog.
right, none
Exactly.
of that. You don't even have to think about what you're going to wear to work.
Right, right. It's just work. That's all you're concerned about is making sure your uniforms are clean and squared away and working.
Right.
When you're a civilian, especially as a woman, you're balancing so many things. You know, you have your household responsibilities. If you have children, we already know that children are a huge responsibility, and if they have activities, parents, aging parents, and as a professional woman, unfortunately, if you want to grow in your career, you have to do extra things. You have to volunteer, you have to be a part of other organizations. Um, you have to earn your leadership. It's
Right.
not as simple as taking an advancement exam.
Right. And sewing on a new patch.
Exactly. Exactly.
S-
Go
So
ahead.
when you were in the professional sector, right, as an employee, and um, had major success there, what was it like for you to, what was the decision making process to go from corporate life to a full on entrepreneur?
Oh my goodness. Lots of prayer. Lots of prayer. I think it all starts with a feeling, right? It starts with like an inkling, like, I think I want to do something different because I think for most professionals, right? Unless you just have that entrepreneurial spirit and I mean, some people just know from the get go that they want to be entrepreneurs. They want to, build their own company or, create their own opportunities. But I would say, when you're climbing the ranks as a professional, for quite a while you're comfortable with that. You're happy. Because you're being challenged and you see the potential for growth. But sometimes for some people there comes a time where you're just like either burnt out or it's no longer, you know, it's no longer fulfilling for you. And you want to do something else, but you don't necessarily always know what that something else is.
Right.
It's kind of like being in a bad marriage. Like you feel like, okay, well,
This doesn't feel good.
no, like I'm not feeling this, and this doesn't feel good, and that's when the process starts, or where you start to seek, um, help or answers, and it either gets better or it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's the same thing in a career that's no longer fulfilling. You can try something else. You can speak to your higher ups, and try to do different things. Maybe try a different location if the company affords you the opportunity to do that. Maybe a different position. But if it's not working, it's not working. If it's no longer for you, if it's not your season, it's just not your season.
Absolutely.
So, right. So for me, I mean, it started with prayer. It started with me just knowing that I was no longer happy there. But at that point, I was a single mom, no longer married. So um, I wasn't willing to take that giant step right away. I wasn't. But over time, I started to kind of just work on my confidence. I started to surround myself with different types of people, other entrepreneurs, and it just opened up my world as far as my thoughts. And I, through frustration and just exhaustion, I should say, it got to a point with me where I just knew that my time was coming, and that when that time came, that I would be able to do it just like anything else. And that's when those milestones come into play, those times in our lives that challenged us to our core. Military experience was my first time in my life at 18 years old where I'd been faced with an experience that was really foreign for me, was really uncomfortable, but ended up being worth it in every sense.
Yeah. Like
When
going
you
through it, we don't know how worth it is, right?
Exactly, yeah. And the military was my experience. That was my first experience in my life to where it hurt like hell in the beginning. Um, and I experienced a lot of challenges in the military, but every single experience that challenged me, it made me cry. It made me feel like I couldn't do it. It made me feel like I wanted to give up. Also made me so much stronger in the end, so much wiser, and it built my confidence in a way that helped me to face every other challenge in life to where it kind of became like my new normal.
Mm.
Yeah,
So when you say your new normal, are you saying that your challenges are now your new normal, or the resilience?
the resilience in dealing with those challenges.
Right.
And again, it all has to do with our mindset and knowing that the growth is in the challenge now to where I embrace it.
I like that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a
Even
Facebook post.
I still hate it sometimes, but it just comes with the territory. We already know that, okay, well, things are starting to get uncomfortable. That means that I'm making progress.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So now that you are an entrepreneur, tell us, what is it that you do? I know that you do so many things that are like really benefiting the community, especially women of color. So tell me what it is that you're doing.
Okay. So the thing that I'm most proud of right now is my financial advising um, business, pretty much. And that's a newer field for me. I teach people about how money works, right? Education that we don't always receive, right? Most of us don't receive growing up. It's not taught in public schools. It's definitely not taught in higher education institutions, even though we're paying money to go there. You know, so many business graduates, college graduates don't even have the information on how to manage and how to grow their money, right?
Right.
Black women are the largest consumers. We're also among the most educated, and we're performing really well as far as in our professions. We're earning higher incomes than ever before. But because of our just the socio-economic history and you know the fact that most of us come from families that are underserved, um, we don't have the education, and it's not just black women, it's people of color and people in general.
It's 91% of Americans.
Exactly, 91% of Americans. I was just about to state that statistic. 91% of Americans do not have financial education. They do not understand how money works, how to build money, how to build wealth, how to leave a legacy for their families. And I think that's a shame.
Yeah.
Honestly, it wasn't until I became a single woman a few years ago that I really started to take uh, a more intentional approach to my finances. I've always been very responsible, but I wasn't really intentional with my money.
Right.
I wasn't, laser focused. I wasn't checking my account every day as I should have. And my relationship with money was toxic. Honestly, it wasn't a healthy relationship. I didn't understand, um, you know, that money essentially is an energy.
Mhm.
It's something that we can attract. It's something that kind of flows in a sense, right? Depending on how we interact with it.
Right. And if we don't
Right.
treat it well, it doesn't want to stick around.
That's right. If we don't respect it, then we won't have enough of it. We
Right.
have to respect our money. We have to know where it's going. If you're a religious person, like you have to be a good steward of your money. It even says it in the Bible. Like you have to be very intentional about what your plans are in anything that's worth it. And money is very important. It's pretty much the thread of so many goals and just the quality of life that we desire to live. Even people who would say that they're not really money driven um, would have to admit that money is important.
Absolutely. Because I have a friend that says, oh, I'm going to screw it up. So I'm not even going to try. But basically, where there's money required, you can't pay with a chicken or something like that, right? Like you have to use money
Exactly.
where it's required.
Yeah, and almost everything costs money.
Right.
So I mean, it's just a part of life. And it's
Absolutely.
not something that we can run away from or shy away from or ignore. It's something that you have to face head on, and education is everything, because with that knowledge then comes accountability, but knowledge is the first thing.
Right. And then we
And
can
with
apply it, right?
exactly, right, right. And in my business, in our business, we always say mission before commission, or
Right.
mission before money, in a sense, where if my mission is to educate people and to empower people, then the money will come, right? Although I have my own personal financial goals as far as, what I want to, or what I am aiming to achieve in my business. But I'm most excited about my financial services business right now because I'm really educating people, and I feel like I'm saving lives. I'm saving um, generations, in a sense. I'm empowering our community. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to make better decisions for sure.
Exactly. And to leave a legacy.
Right.
Acquiring wealth is not just for the affluent. You know,
Absolutely.
yeah, exactly. It's
And
for
that's
it's for normal people. And I don't want to use the word normal because I don't want to um, make reference to anything being abnormal. But what should be abnormal is illiteracy. Financial illiteracy should be abnormal, but that is the norm
right. And
right
it's
now.
such a shame. I mean, because we go to school and we learn all of these things and we learn what Albert Einstein says about the theory of relativity. We learn about gravity. We learn about all of these things, but we
Yeah.
need to learn about money because that's something that we all work so hard for, but we're kind of in the dark about how it works and how to make it work for us.
Yeah.
I was thinking, wouldn't it have been life altering had we had the knowledge that we have now when we were in our 20s?
Oh yeah.
When we had all of that money just flowing into us, my $40,000 sign on bonus, my other,
Oh
like $20,000 reenlistment bonus. If I would have known what I know now, oh my gosh.
yeah. I mean, even about compound interest,
Yes.
right? How many, bad loans would we have avoided?
So
Because we
many.
already know that, those young military members are kind of like being advertised to, and are kind of
Taken
like
advantage of.
they're being taken advantage of. They're like prey. I know I was, you
Yeah,
know.
the new recruit who's got a credit card for the first time, or even the college student, right? That goes on
Right.
campus and there's all of these different people out there hustling their credit cards at, it seems like free money because we weren't educated on what a credit card is or how
Exactly.
it impacts us, right?
Ridiculous interest rate, those car loans, so for those new recruits getting, these brand new cars that they can't afford. They don't understand that. Or to your point, the bonuses, or those times when, we were on deployment and we didn't have to spend money because our food and our housing and everything was paid for, and we would come back from deployment and have like, 50 $60 50 $60,000 in an account just waiting for us, that you know we were too young to even understand the value of that.
Right. I
But we
just glanced at the time and I can't believe that it's already like 5 after the hour. We got
Oh
places to be. I know we got places to be, but I want you to please give our service members a quick tip. And there's something that I want to mention at the end real fast. But yeah, give your tip if you could for those that are
okay.
transitioning.
All right, to all you transitioning military members, just remember that you served your country well. You've done an amazing job, and now it's time for you to live the best quality of life that you can afford to. That is your job. Take advantage of all the benefits that the VA has to offer. Don't allow your pride or your ignorance to, to have you missing out. Honestly, now it's time for you to change your mindset. If you need to take a break, take a break, educate yourself, get your education if that's what you decide to do. But just know that the training that you've received in the military has equipped you to accomplish anything that you want to accomplish in this country or in this world. Do not second guess yourself, but also know that the way that you present yourself is really important, and that you have a community of people, whether it be in your community or in the virtual world or through the Veterans Association, that are here to support you. So ask for help if you need it, and take advantage of everything that's afforded to you. Okay,
Awesome.
because you deserve it. You've earned it.
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely, they do. And I haven't discussed this with you, Naseeka, and like I said, we got to run. But I came up with this idea that for the month of November, I would love for you to help me help as many veterans as possible that are transitioning out, maybe new veterans, or maybe even, veterans, right? Just to get them the financial education that they need. Would you be open to helping me with that?
Of course, I would love to.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to leave our contact information in the area below. And yeah, reach out to me, reach out to Naseeka, and we want to help you. We want to help you get the financial education that you need to live the life that you deserve. Thank you so much for sharing some time with us today. Bye.